All right, let's get right into it. Hello everyone and welcome. I am Dr. Damian Wolf and I am absolutely thrilled you're all here. So, grab your mugs. For me, it's black coffee, naturally, heavily caffeinated, and listen up. We are looking at SCP-6765 today, and I promise you, what we are about to cover is going to fundamentally change your entire understanding of antediluvian history.
The Eastern Kashmir Forward Operating Site, or EKFOS, is unimaginably highly classified. To give you a real sense of what you're walking into, just take a look at Dr. Arav Patel's 2016 field notes regarding the initial expedition. He wrote, "Several members of the expedition reported meeting SCP-6765-C in a dream the night before their discovery of SCP-6765. Think about that for a second. They hadn't even found the cave yet, and the site's caretaker was already reaching out into their subconscious to guide them in. That is exactly the eerie metaphysical reality of the environment you're about to enter."
We really need to map out the physical space you'll be operating in, because it is essentially this buried, inverted tower. The site has three main areas. At the very top, accessible via a small cave outcrop, is the atrium. It's basically the attic of this ancient structure. Below that, down a whole series of staircases, is the throne room. This is the sealed chamber where the primary anomalies, entities A, B, C, and D, reside. But below the throne room, well, that is where things get truly mind-boggling. That is the reservoir, a massive subterranean chamber spanning the vast remainder of the complex.
SCP-6765-A is the actual throne itself. It's this incredibly complex pseudobiological machine built out of hammered gold and copper that acts as a five-chambered mechanical heart. It literally pulls blood up from the reservoir, pushes it through the occupant of the throne, and filters the living memory of the Dava so their history is never, ever forgotten. Let's look at the stark contrast between the two ancient survivors you'll be studying down there. On the left is SCP-6765-B, Lord Relevine. He is the one actually sitting on the throne. He's an emaciated Davite magister whose own heart has been fully bypassed by the machine's syringes, existing in a permanent deep sleep to act as the living filter for those blood memories. Now, on the right is SCP-6765-D, the demon Ogier. Ogier is this towering, 10-meter-tall entity in a state of arrested metamorphosis, meaning his original human torso is literally fused right into the chest of a hulking demonic form. But here's the wild part. Despite his absolutely terrifying appearance, Ogier is highly articulate and represents our single most significant asset in Foundation antediluvian research. He provides direct translations and historical context we simply couldn't get anywhere else.
And then we also have SCP-6765-C, an entity who calls himself Javar. He is an instance of SCP-1000, what ancient texts call a child of the night. Standing nearly 12 feet tall and covered in dark hair, Javar is the surprisingly peaceful caretaker of the site. Since his vocal cords aren't built for human speech, he communicates primarily through American Sign Language in the waking world, but when you interact with him in dreams, fluent direct speech.
Now what's really interesting here is what Javar himself has to say. The last king of night is not unlike this place, a place of stored memory. Despite being this ancient child of the night, he actually serves an entirely unexpected defensive and caretaker role in this chamber. He isn't some hostile monster we need to worry about. He's a fierce, dedicated protector. He maintains that mechanical throne, he meticulously cares for the sleeping Relevine, and he actively defends Ogier. Because, despite Ogier's demonic outward form, metaphysically speaking, the guy is incredibly frail. He's exhausted by his condition and actually highly vulnerable.
So, we need to talk about the rapid, absolutely catastrophic fall of the antediluvian city of Apollyon. This is the distant, sprawling dream state history that put these entities in their current predicament hundreds of thousands of years ago. It all spiraled wildly out of control when Sky King Cyrus VIII launched this brutal conquest across the Western Sea against the Fae. He ended up coming back with a captive Fae princess, and well, that sparked a totally disastrous chain of events. It shattered his empire, corrupted his greatest primeval knights, and ultimately culminated in the massive cataclysm known to history as the Great Flood.
Which brings us right to the inciting incident of that whole downfall. Usurpers of the sun's right hand, you will have the years to count your graven sins, but no mind to resolve them. Bound in iron, subjected to just unspeakable cruelty, the Fae Princess laid that haunting curse upon the Sky Kings. She literally robbed them of their minds to resolve their graven sins. And this sorcery specifically targeted the souls of the four primeval demons, the king's greatest knights.
Ogier, our SCP-6765D, was one of those nights, and through shared memories, we found out he barely managed to halt his own terrifying transformation halfway through, fleeing straight to the Day of the Sorcerers in an absolutely desperate bid for salvation.
And you know, it's honestly hard to believe, but this dark, subterranean cave actually used to touch the clouds. Just think about the architectural evolution of Malianthrog. Before the catastrophic waters of the Great Flood, this exact spot was the tallest, most majestic spire of the city, reaching way up into the sky as this grand temple. But today, after hundreds of thousands of years of geological shifting and absolute destruction, it's really nothing more than an isolated, buried rock outcrop completely submerged underneath a modern lake.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between these two eras. On the one hand, you've got the antediluvian Davite citizens willingly sacrificing their very lives and their literal blood just to preserve their history for eternity. Then, on the other hand, you have us, the modern Foundation. We're sterile, we're highly methodical, operating under strict observational containment procedures. We certainly aren't bleeding into a pool, we are just trying to safely decode what they left behind.
Which brings us to the actual operational nightmare faced by Dr. Matthew Fullwhaler and Agent Evelyn Ivy on site. How exactly do we interview a 1,000-year-old sleeping Davite submerged in a literal ocean of memories? Well, the answer, championed quite enthusiastically by our research team, is wonderfully simple. We just take a nap. Because physical interaction with Lord Relevine is totally impossible without killing him, we must pivot to our unique metaphysical methodology. Here is your quick tutorial on how we conduct research without physically disturbing the entities. Step 1. You are administered into somnambulistic stasis. Step 2. You use standard Foundation techniques to gain lucidity within the metaphysical dreamscape. Step 3. You locate Javert, who will act as your guide and intermediary. Step 4. You are granted an audience with the sleeping mind of Lord Relevine and the ancestral memories of the Deva. It is a visually stunning experience, but let me be clear, strict safety protocols apply. If your heart rate spikes above 120 beats per minute in stasis, boom, you will be forcibly extracted immediately to prevent metaphysical psychic bleed. Keep your wits about you in there.
Now, taking a more serious turn, the source of the truly terrifying operational crisis we are currently facing is buried deep beneath the blood reservoir itself. I'm talking about the entombed corpse of the King in Red, the Lord of Memory, a divine ancestor of the Daiva. Relevine is experiencing this suffocating mind fog right now because that dead god's corpse is getting restless. It's actively pushing against its ancient seals, leaching a deadly metaphysical poison directly into the reservoir, corrupting the blood and actively destroying the ancient memories stored within it.
Listen to Relevine's own dire warning, transmitted directly to us from the dreamscape. The rotten body of the King in Red is leaching its poison into me, my friends. These walls will fall in time. The ancient wards that were built by the Mad King of Maladraug to keep the King in Red trapped, they are failing and they're failing fast. Relevine is way too weak to reseal it himself. If that seal breaks completely, a true, furious dead god will be unleashed upon the world from beneath Axiton Lake. We cannot let that happen.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely chilling reality. What happens when the Foundation's meticulously preserved memory is entirely eclipsed by a dead god's rage? The clock is absolutely ticking at EKFOS, people. The stakes are literally apocalyptic, and we are racing to extract every single piece of antediluvian knowledge we can before the King in Red wakes up for good. Welcome to Project Paragon. Now, drink your coffee, and let's get back to work.